So anyway, all right, next game, Texans at the Colts. So we're moving into the Sunday slate. This line opened up Colts -7, and it's still 7 across the board. So who do you like in this game?
I like the Texans here. I mean, the Texans almost beat the Colts just a couple of weeks ago in Houston. Really, if not for an errant snap by Nick Martin to Deshaun Watson, Phillip Rivers would have had to mount a comeback. The game at most would have gone into overtime probably, and then we would have seen who won. And in that case, you'd be covering the spread pretty much no matter what. And I get that some stuff has changed with the Texans. They just got crushed by the Bears. They're out of playoff contention, so they might be a little demoralized at this point. But I actually tend to think that they played so poorly against the Bears that Deshaun Watson's going to be pissed off about that. He's going to come back and say to his team, like, hey, we almost beat the Colts a couple weeks ago. We can do it this time, and we can kind of spoil their playoff run, kind of the whole like, oh, this might be their Super Bowl type thing again. Because if the Colts lose, then they're, behind in the division and have to play a wild card game, and the Texans can take credit for doing that. So I think, while the Colts offense has been hot lately, their defense hasn't been as good. I think Deshaun Watson's going to be able to throw against them, even with Kiki Cutie and Chad Hansen as his number 2 and 3 receivers. And I just think that I think the Texans are going to cover here. I think the Colts could still easily win, but I just don't see why the Colts should be favored by 7. I know, again, their offense has been really good, but their defense has been relying on massive splash plays like big sacks, turnovers, defensive touchdowns to make an impact. And I think at some point, we saw it against the Titans the second time around. Their luck on defense ran out a bit. I could see that happening again here. So I'll take the points with the Texans here. I will point out if Jordan Akins drops another wide open touchdown, I will lose my mind because I actually played him in fantasy. And to quote my dad watching that play happen, he didn't see it live, but I sent it to him after. He said, I could have caught that. So if my 61-year-old father, sorry for mentioning your age, Dad, can catch a pass, Jordan Akins, you better be able to too.
I was playing him on DraftKings, and then at the last second, I'm like, I remember those 2 drops on Thanksgiving, and I'm like, I'll be so tilted if he drops another pass. So I took him out. Then it didn't end up working out because I put in Duke Johnson at running back to kind of pair with Deshaun Watson. That lineup didn't do well because the Texans scored 7 points. I thought that, we talked about the Texans-Bears game obviously last week, and I thought that, I went with the Texans because I thought Deshaun Watson might want to outplay Mitchell Trubisky because of the what happened in the 2017 draft. But I also considered the fact that the Texans might be completely flat because of how they lost against the Colts the first time. Like, they had a chance to win. They still thought they could make the playoffs, even though that's probably not. But they still had a chance, if they ran the table. And they ended up just losing on that fumble on that errant snap. And then I remember Watson just sitting on the sideline with a towel on his head, just being completely dejected. And I was like, yeah, they might just be flat. Like, they were a complete no-show against the Bears. But teams rarely quit twice in a row. So I think the Texans are going to play a lot harder this week. For me, I think this line is fair. I don't see an edge with the line. But what I would say is, if the Colts are missing some players, then I'm definitely going to be on the Texans. The Colts lost a couple of guys late in the game last week. Darius Leonard went down in the fourth quarter. Xavier Rhodes got injured in the third quarter. Both those guys are just, if they're out, that's a big deal. And we don't know what's going to happen. I saw Frank Reich say that they're going to be okay. Does that mean they're going to be okay for the playoffs or okay for this week? He didn't really specify. So going to definitely pay attention to the injury report. So if those guys are out, I'm going to be betting the Texans. If those guys are in, I'll probably be 0 units on the Texans. Or actually it might be in the Colts because of all the injuries the Texans have. So not really sure what I'm going to do yet, but definitely going to monitor the injury report.
Yeah, those injuries are huge. The one to Xavier Rhodes especially, because he came up hurt on the sideline. Anytime someone's on the sideline, they get hit and their bodies all around, those always worry me. But if those two are out, that defense is going to look a lot different because it's basically going to be DeForest Buckner against the world. Not to diminish the other talent they have, but, if you're missing two of your top 3 defensive players and they're in the back 7, your back 7's not going to hold up pretty well. So we'll see what happens there, but I'll probably be on the Texans either way. I just think that Deshaun Watson's going to come ready to play, and I think this could end up being like a last-second field goal game for the Colts.
Yeah, and this might be the Texans Super Bowl. Jamil Thompson saying the coach said they were optimistic to play this week. If I had a nickel for every time a coach was optimistic about a player playing, I'd have a lot of nickels. Saying that, like, you never know with these guys, especially like Pete Carroll. Like he's so famous for being like, yeah, he's definitely going to play, and then like he's out for like 4 more games. So you never know how these guys how their bodies are going to respond during the week. So that's why like paying attention to the injury report is so important. So definitely going to look forward to that later in the week.